One of the key figures here is obviously Mike Pence. He said this week he's willing to consider testifying if he is asked. Are you going to ask him?
So we've been in discussions with his counsel. I didn't see his specific comments this week, but it sounds like they were pretty similar to what his counsel has been saying. If he had succumbed to the pressure that Donald Trump was putting on him, we would have had a much worse constitutional crisis. And I think that he has clearly, as he's expressed, concerns about executive privilege, which, I have tremendous respect. I think it's hugely important constitutional issue in terms of separation of powers. I believe in executive privilege. I think it matters. But I also think that when the country has been through something as grave as this was, everyone who has information has an obligation to step forward. So I would hope that he will do that.
So you think we'll see him here in September in this room?
I would hope I would hope that he will understand how important it is for the American people to know every aspect of the truth about what happened that day.
What about Trump before you wrap up? Will you ask him to testify?
I don't want to make any announcements about that this morning. So let me just leave it there.
If they were to call you to the committee to come and testify and talk, would you be agreeable?
I would, if there was an invitation to participate, I would consider it. But you've heard me mention the Constitution a few times this morning. On the Constitution, we have 3 co-equal branches of government. And any invitation to be directed to me, I would have to reflect on the unique role that I was serving in as Vice President. It'd be unprecedented in history for a Vice President to be summoned to testify on Capitol Hill. But as I said, I don't want to prejudge.
Roxanne, I know you have strong feelings about CRT.
I'm an immigrant from Jamaica. I would just say that being taught from an early age, and I've seen this again across the spectrum of my friends, that America is a bad place, that Thanksgiving is something to not be celebrated. Kids no longer say the pledge after middle school. As someone who, took an oath to protect and defend the U.S. Constitution when I became a citizen, it's sad.
And of course, the savings from a vehicle perspective of owning, maintaining, and not having to fill up are just enormous.
Thank you.
Is such an example of why countries need to move away from the volatility of fuels from countries who do not have our interests and from the volatility of fossil fuels. If we want to be energy secure and energy independent, that means we've got to produce our own energy. My counterpart in Ireland, the minister there, energy minister there, has said that no one has ever weaponized access to the sun. No one has ever weaponized the wind. Perhaps a move to clean energy will be the greatest peace plan the world has ever known.
We learned some hard lessons over the last 3 years, and as part of that, it's my responsibility, it's the agency's responsibility to learn from those lessons and do better.
For those that live in the northern parts of our country, it's hard to even imagine how crazy this situation is. It does not end. It doesn't stop.
Madam Speaker, mark my words. Long after the headlines of this week fades, we'll look back on this very day and on this bill as the one that broke the camel's back. I'm sure, Madam Speaker, as the months progress, there'll be new blame, there'll be new problems. It'll be those who own the gas station. You'll probably blame the small families that had to buy the natural gas for their price going higher. Somehow you'll blame Putin again, and somehow you tell the American public, no, your price isn't higher, you're actually better off and there's zero inflation. Even though you take home less, everything costs more. Let me tell you about the future the Democrats want for America, the future that we can expect if this bill passes, much like the one before. When wealthy Americans are getting tax breaks to buy luxury cars, but you can't afford to even fill up your tank, blame this bill, blame the Democrats. When store shelves are empty because more American manufacturers have gone under, blame this bill, blame the Democrats. When government agents are knocking at your door and threatening your business, blame this bill, blame the Democrats.
still, down 54% in July.
Wow, that's a
San
huge
Francisco,
drop.
look at this, down 46%. Seattle, New York, Washington, D.C. There's an interesting story developing there about whether people are going back to restaurants in some of those big metro areas.
What's going on with those? That's versus 2019.
Jeff, any hypothesis?
You know, I think this is really amplified, talking about the dislocated reopening. And all of a sudden you talk about red and blue states.